Welcome to Storytime. I'm Kimberlyn, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to connect with you. I put it out there that Storytime, although for me it is all about connection, the root of that connection begins when we can connect with our authentic self. I call it an inspiration checkup. Not because I'm a master of inspiring others. Sometimes I can barely inspire myself. But I am becoming a master of practice, of beginning again. So when I invite you to check your own inspiration levels, I want you to consider not so much about what you're doing, but how you're being, how you're connecting with the universal life force energy. In yoga, we call it Prana. But in every culture around the globe, there's this commonality, this sense of spirit, often rooted in the word form, spirit and breath sharing a common root. That's the source of inspiration. And it's the source of hope as well. So yeah, it's been a year since we shut down, right, as a global phenomenon, to pause and to cultivate some new awarenesses, some new relationships. Some of those relationships were probably overdue in needing time to reset and recalibrate. And some of them have been truly tested. So maybe you know some folks like I do who have gone a full year without having physical contact, a hug from another person. Others who have lost loved ones, whether it was to this specific disease of COVID-19 or other circumstances that just were compounded by the pandemic and the social, physical distancing that we've had to practice, in which case mourning as a milestone of someone's life, the grief process is stagnated or interrupted. But what I want to look at today is not just how we're showing up and where we're showing up, but also invite you into the why do you show up? Because that why is about hope. It's about trusting that when we show up, it matters. It matters not just to our own well-being, but also to the well-being of others, both those that we know and those that we don't know. On my walk to the studio, not every day, sometimes it's too cold, at least of late. Sometimes it's even too hot or I'm running late because I couldn't find the inspiration to get out of bed. But today on my morning walk, it was really interesting to me the exchanges I had with other folks walking, some of whom seeming to want to turn inward and lock themselves away. Ironically, two of those folks were not wearing a mask. The other person, the only other person that was wearing a mask while walking, which is, again, it's not a requirement, it's just an extra precaution that I take when I'm out and about in the community. The other person who was wearing a mask lit up when they saw me coming. Both of us in our masks, right, covering the bottom half of our face, but I could see and I could feel the light that she was sharing by greeting me this morning. Yes, with a covered smile, with smiling eyes, and a good morning, have a good day. That's not to say that every day has been filled with that kind of evidence of authentic connection, of inspiring hope. But it's how I want to show up. It's how I want others to receive my energy, my presence. So whether it's in an email format, a video format, or practicing here in the studio, virtually or in real time, in real presence, our energy translates over the distance that separates us. So maybe it's not so much social distancing as physical distancing. Because the social component is about authentic connection. It's about finding ways to let one another know and see the love that we have in our hearts, even when they may not see the most tangible evidence of a smile. And with that, perhaps today is not the day for a smile. So how can we connect? How can we be authentic in our struggles, in our challenges? It's remembering that we are already enough just as we are. That breathing, that moving, resting, this is the practice of kind of balancing this shift of the season, this kapha season as we end winter and move into the stickiness of spring, is about lifting our bodies, lifting our spirits, and cultivating joy. And how ironic that as we transition into spring, we're also coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic shutdown and the physical distancing, masks, and distance that we've had to implement. So really what it boils down to for me is that when we are in a time of crisis, we can choose to succumb, to be overwhelmed, to give up. And even if there is a temporary or momentary or even elongated stage of being in that succumbing, that overwhelm, that's okay. But the real invitation when we are put into a point of crisis, of challenge, is to see if we are willing to reach out to one another, to cultivate connection, both with ourselves and with each other, and overcome the obstacles through creative thinking, through compassionate offering and supporting and serving, and through true, authentic alignment of living our best intentions. This is what I call yoga living. In fact, I want to invite you that if you are struggling to do the things that matter most to you, to show up authentically, to facilitate this transition between non-doing of COVID-19 and the new beginning of doing in perhaps a little more hope, I want to invite you to join me for a program I call Yoga Living. And it really is a program to cultivate this connection with inspiration and hope so that we can live in greater alignment and in greater connection. It's 6 months of support and encouragement, of guidance, of being with you in the journey, every step of the way. Yeah, we're going to integrate not only the yoga practice, breathe, move, and rest, but we're also going to integrate the philosophies, the principles, and the ethics of yoga so that you can find a clear way, clear path of moving into your best life. Showing up as who you are, fully enough just as you are, and yet still cultivating an openness to shift and to change and to learn and to grow, because fundamentally, we're in this as a process, this life as a practice. And yoga really is a phenomenal strategy to help us cultivate the discipline and the patience to persevere through whatever life throws us. I'm so grateful for my yoga practice. I can't even imagine where I would be had I not had the strong foundation of a daily showing up just for myself. Because I know that when it's hard to show up for myself, it's almost impossible for me to show up for others. And my life's work is showing up for others, to support them, you, in doing your life in alignment, connected to inspiration, and as an act of service, our dharma, or our life's work. So again, check in with your inspiration levels. How are you breathing? How are you moving? How are you shifting with all of the things that life is throwing at you in this season, but also in this year? And maybe, just maybe, like me, you're hungry for a little more connection, a little more support of the daily decisions of how and where and why would I want to show up for this. I want you to show up because you matter. And I want to show up for you because the work that we do in living well, in living authentically, in alignment, is really what allows us to touch the bliss and the joy that really is our life's work. Thank you for sharing these minutes of story time. Before you transition back to whatever is next on your agenda, join me for an extra moment of just breath. It really is the only requirement to living our best lives, to living fully, is to just breathe. And when we've managed to just breathe, then we can sprinkle in the movement and the resting. What's the challenge for you today? And maybe, just maybe, we can do some work together to help you move, breathe, rest with greater ease and greater alignment. I look forward to seeing you again soon. May you be well. Breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. That's what I mean when I say live well, when I say let's live our best lives. That is my wish, my blessing for you. Namaste.